The United Nations Starship Horizon drifted silently through the void, approaching the massive space station that orbited the amber gas giant. Inside the ship's command center, Ambassador Alan Wright straightened his formal uniform and took a deep breath. "Are we ready to make history, people?" he asked, looking around at his hand-picked diplomatic team. Lily Dawson adjusted her communications headset and nodded. As the youngest member of the team at 28, she couldn't believe she was part of humanity's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization. "Translation systems are online, sir," she reported. "I've analyzed enough of their transmissions to manage basic communication." The Velsirians had been discovered 3 months earlier when Earth's deep space telescopes detected their massive energy signatures. After careful observation and signal interception, Earth had decided it was time to introduce themselves to the galaxy. "Remember," Wright told his team, "we come in peace and friendship. We offer knowledge and seek the same in return." The Horizon eased into the designated docking port. Through the viewports, they could see the strange, angular architecture of the Velsirian station. It was enormous, at least 5 times the size of Earth's largest orbital platform. "Their design principles are fascinating," remarked Dr. Susan Miller, the team's xenobiologist. "Notice how they favor sharp angles over curves. That might tell us something about their evolution." As the airlock cycled, Wright led his team of 6 toward their first face-to-face meeting with an alien species. Security Officer Jack Bennett walked slightly behind the ambassador, alert but with his weapons secured. They had all agreed that showing trust was crucial. The airlock opened to reveal 3 tall, blue-skinned figures. The Velsirians stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and elongated heads that featured 3 large, dark eyes arranged in a triangle. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we greet you in peace," Wright said, holding his hands open in the universal gesture of having no weapons. Lily activated her translation device and repeated the greeting in the closest approximation of the Velsirian language she could manage. The lead Velsirian made a sharp clicking sound. The translation came through Lily's earpiece a moment later. "You have violated sovereign territory of the Velsirian Empire. Inferior species are not permitted in this sector." Wright maintained his diplomatic smile. "There must be a misunderstanding. We received no warnings about restricted space. We come seeking peaceful exchange off." The Velsirian interrupted with another series of clicks and whistles. "Your presence is an offense to the purity doctrine. Contamination cannot be tolerated." Before anyone could respond, the 3 Velsirians raised weapons that had been hidden in their lower set of arms. Bright energy beams cut through the air. "No!" Lily screamed as Ambassador Wright collapsed, a smoking hole in his chest. The diplomatic team scattered. Security Officer Bennett managed to draw his weapon and fire a single shot before being cut down. Dr. Miller fell next, then the others. In the chaos, Lily dove behind a structural column. Her hand found the emergency beacon on her belt and activated it. The small device began recording everything. "Inferior species will learn their place," the Velsirian commander stated coldly. "This sector has been cleansed of human contamination for the 3rd time. Perhaps now your kind will understand." 3rd time. Lily realized with horror that the Velsirians must have encountered other human expeditions, ones that had gone missing over the past year. Using her communications training, Lily managed to slip away during the confusion. She reached an access corridor that led to a maintenance shuttle. With shaking hands, she activated its systems and disengaged from the station. As the tiny craft accelerated away, Lily watched through tear-filled eyes as the horizon erupted in flames. The Velsirians had destroyed it, leaving no evidence of their crime, except for her, and the recording that would show Earth exactly what they were facing in the darkness between the stars. 3 weeks after Lily Dawson's return to Earth, the United Nations Security Council gathered in their underground chamber beneath New Geneva. The mood was somber as they watched the recording of the diplomatic team's execution for the 5th time. "We've confirmed that 3 other exploration vessels disappeared in Velsirian territory," said General Frank Morgan, his weathered face grim. The Curiosity, the Pioneer, and the Magellan, all gone without a trace. President Olivia Martinez rubbed her temples. Since becoming the first Hispanic woman to lead the North American Union 5 years ago, she had faced many crises, none compared to this. They murdered our people simply for existing, she said quietly, and they called it cleansing. Dr. Nathan Harris stood at the other end of the table. At 42, he had already revolutionized Earth's understanding of quantum physics. His wild hair and rumpled lab coat stood out among the crisp uniforms and formal attire. Madam President, I may have something that can help, Harris said, stepping forward with a data tablet. My team has been developing a theoretical weapon. We call it Project Tremor. He displayed a holographic model of a device about the size of a small car. This creates a controlled tear in space-time, he explained. The tear releases energy that propagates as a wave, like ripples in a pond, but through the fabric of space itself. Admiral Paul Blackwood leaned forward. What would this do to an enemy fleet, Dr. Harris? It would destroy it completely, Harris replied. But more importantly, the effect would be visible across vast distances. The ripples can be detected light years away. President Martinez frowned. You're not just suggesting a weapon. You're suggesting a message. Exactly, Harris nodded. A warning that humanity is not defenseless. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Lily Dawson, who had been invited to the meeting due to her first-hand experience, spoke up. The Velsirians said we were the third cleansing. They'd been killing humans who venture into their territory without even attempting communication. We need to show strength, Admiral Blackwood insisted. The Velsirians clearly respect only power. President Martinez stared at the hologram. How soon can this be built? 6 months for a prototype, Harris answered. But I must caution you. This technology manipulates fundamental forces. The consequences of full deployment could be unpredictable. The president stood and walked to the window overlooking the underground garden. Finally, she turned back to the room. Begin construction immediately, she ordered, and establish the United Nations Space Command. Admiral Blackwood will lead our combined fleets. She looked at everyone in the room. Let's be clear, we will not strike first. We will continue to attempt peaceful contact with other species, but we must be prepared to defend ourselves. Over the next 4 months, Earth's shipyards worked at full capacity. The existing exploration fleet was retrofitted with defensive capabilities. The first Tremor device took shape in a heavily guarded orbital facility. Meanwhile, Lily Dawson worked with linguists to prepare messages in the Velsirian language and dozen other alien tongues they had detected. Each message expressed the same simple desire: peaceful coexistence. None received replies. As Earth prepared, long-range sensors detected increasing Velsirian activity near the edges of the solar system. Scout ships appeared briefly before disappearing again. They're testing our defenses, Admiral Blackwood reported. Preparing for something bigger. On a cold October morning, the warning they had been dreading finally came. A transmission from the Jupiter monitoring station showed a massive energy signature moving toward the solar system. It's time, President Martinez said, authorizing the final assembly of Project Tremor. God help us all. The Europa Colony dome shimmered under the faint sunlight that reached across the vast distance to Jupiter's icy moon. Inside, 500 colonists continued their work developing the deep-sea drilling platforms that would eventually reach the ocean beneath the frozen surface. Captain Kate Foster stood in the control center, watching the radar display with growing concern. 3 unidentified vessels had appeared in orbit 20 minutes ago and weren't responding to hails. Any progress on communications? She asked her team. Nothing, Captain, replied Communications Officer Greg Wilson. But their energy signatures matched the Velsirian patterns in our database. Kate's heart sank. The outpost had only minimal defenses, a few surface-to-orbit cannons, and a small squadron of fighters. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. Sound the evacuation alarm, she ordered. Get everyone to the emergency shelters. Before Greg could reach the controls, the first impact shook the dome. Alarm systems blared as sections of the habitat lost pressure. They hit the North Quadrant, reported Security Chief Carl Peterson. No warning, no demands. Kate grabbed the station-wide communication system. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The next hour became a desperate struggle for survival. Kate's small security team fought to hold off Velsirian boarding parties, while evacuation pods launched toward the hidden backup station on Ganymede. The colonists fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. When the last evacuation pod cleared the surface, Kate ordered the remaining defenders to the final escape vessel. As they prepared to launch, a Velsirian energy beam cut through the hangar bay doors. "Go," Kate shouted, laying down covering fire as her team boarded. "I'll hold them off." Despite protests, she sealed the escape pod and initiated launch. As the pod disappeared into space, Kate turned to face the approaching Velsirians. Her final transmission to Earth was simple. Europa has fallen. They gave no quarter. Back on Earth, the news of the Europa attack spread quickly. In an emergency session, the United Nations Council voted unanimously to authorize the use of Project Tremor. "We tried peace," President Martinez told the world in a solemn address. "We were answered with slaughter." Dr. Harris looked troubled as he prepared the prototype device for deployment. "We're setting a precedent here," he warned. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Admiral Blackwood nodded grimly. "They've already set the precedent. We're just responding." The Earth fleet moved silently toward their target, an uninhabited Velsirian mining moon in a nearby star system. The Tremor device was loaded onto the carrier ship Determination, while the rest of the fleet created a protective formation around it. "Target in range," reported Lieutenant Roy Jackson from the Determination's bridge. "Tremor device ready for deployment." Admiral Blackwood took a deep breath, launched the device. The small probe containing Project Tremor detached from the Determination and accelerated toward the barren mining moon. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without warning, the surface of the moon began to distort visibly. It was as if reality itself was rippling. Fissures appeared across the rocky terrain, spreading in all directions. The entire moon appeared to shudder, its shape warping impossibly. With a silent flash of energy that temporarily blinded the ship's sensors, the moon shattered into billions of fragments. But more impressive was what happened to the space around it. Waves of distortion spread outward, visible ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. The crew watched in stunned silence. The weapon had exceeded even Dr. Harris' predictions. "The distortion waves will be detectable across the galaxy," Harris said quietly. "Every advanced civilization will see what happened here." Admiral Blackwood nodded. "Good. It's time to deliver our message." The Earth fleet broadcasted on all frequencies and in all known alien languages. "To all galactic civilizations, we are humanity. We seek peaceful coexistence, but we will not accept extinction. What you have witnessed is our response to unprovoked aggression. We draw a line in the stars today. Cross it at your peril." News of the destroyed moon spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The space-time distortions created by Project Tremor had been detected by every advanced civilization within 500 light-years. Some species feared it heralded the end of the universe itself until Earth's message arrived. In the Great Council chamber of the Velsirian Empire, Emperor Zax Thul slammed his upper fists against the obsidian table. His lower arms remained perfectly still in the traditional pose of imperial dignity, but his three eyes blazed with fury. "These humans dare to challenge us," he hissed to his assembled war council. "They are barely space-capable vermin." High Admiral Krelvon replayed the footage of the mining moon's destruction. "The weapon exceeds anything in our arsenal, Emperor. The humans have somehow mastered space-time manipulation." "They got lucky," Zax Thul dismissed the concern. "One prototype weapon does not make them our equals. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will crush their civilization and take this technology for ourselves." Meanwhile, in Earth's orbital defense headquarters, Lily Dawson worked tirelessly with her communications team. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. Some were threats, but others expressed interest in dialogue for the first time. "The Arcturians have responded," she told Admiral Blackwood, barely containing her excitement. "They want to open diplomatic channels, so do the Centauri Collective and the Regellian Federation." Admiral Blackwood nodded, though his expression remained grim. "And what about the Velsirians?" Lily's smile faded. "They've sent us coordinates. It appears to be footage from one of their warships." The main screen activated to show a massive assembly of Velsirian vessels. The fleet stretched as far as the eye could see, thousands of warships in perfect formation. "Our answer to your crude display," came the translated message. "The Grand Fleet approaches. Surrender the tremor technology, and we will consider allowing some humans to live as servants." President Martinez watched the message with the Security Council. When it ended, she remained silent for several long moments. "How long until they reach our solar system?" she finally asked. 2 weeks at their current speed," Admiral Blackwood replied. Dr. Harris cleared his throat nervously. "Madam President, I must inform you that we only have 3 operational tremor devices. The production process is extremely complex." "Will 3 be enough?" she asked. Harris hesitated. "Against that many ships?" "No, but there is another option." He displayed schematics for a much larger device. "This is what we call the Omega configuration. Instead of creating localized tiers in space-time, it would generate a cascading reaction. The effects would be far-reaching." "How far-reaching?" President Martinez asked, her voice quiet. "Potentially, it could create permanent distortions throughout this entire sector of the galaxy," Harris admitted. "It would be devastating to any civilization in the affected region, including parts of our own solar system." The room fell silent. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," President Martinez finally said. "For now, we prepare our defenses and continue diplomatic outreach to potential allies." As Earth mobilized, something unexpected happened. 3 representatives from previously unknown species arrived in a small, unarmed vessel. They requested an emergency audience with Earth's leaders. "We have monitored your conflict with the Velsirians," said the translator for the trio. "Our peoples have also suffered under their expansion. We propose an alliance." "Why now?" Admiral Blackwood asked suspiciously. "Why not when they first attacked us?" "Because now you have shown you can fight back," replied the alien diplomat. Its translucent skin rippled with colors that suggested both fear and hope. "The tremor weapon has changed the balance of power. For the first time in millennia, the Velsirian Empire might be challenged." President Martinez studied the 3 visitors. "And if we refuse?" "Then you stand alone against the Grand Fleet," came the simple reply. "And even with your new weapon, you will fall. But together, we might survive." As humanity considered this first potential alliance, the Velsirian fleet continued its relentless approach toward Earth. The vast swarm of Velsirian warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Their hulls gleamed dull purple in the distant sunlight as they formed up near Neptune's orbit. Over 6,000 vessels ranging from small, nimble fighters to massive dreadnoughts that stretched several kilometers in length. Earth's defense fleet waited near Saturn, using the planet's magnificent rings as cover. Admiral Blackwood had positioned his 117 ships in a formation that maximized their defensive capabilities. "They outnumber us 50-1. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper observed from his position at the tactical station aboard the flagship Defiance. At 32, Cooper had risen quickly through the ranks due to his brilliance in analyzing enemy tactics. "Numbers aren't everything," Admiral Blackwood replied, though the tight lines around his eyes betrayed his concern. "We have home field advantage and 3 tremor devices." The Admiral touched his comlink. "All ships, maintain position. Let them come to us." The waiting was the hardest part. Hours stretched by as the Velsirian armada approached with deliberate slowness. They were in no hurry. Their victory seemed assured by sheer numbers. Back on Earth, Dr. Harris and his team worked frantically in their underground laboratory. The prototype Omega configuration of the tremor device sat on a testing platform, its complex array of quantum manipulators glowing with potential energy. The simulations show a 73% chance of success, reported Dr. Harris' assistant, Ellen Powell. But the ripple effects would be catastrophic within a 3-light-year radius. Dr. Harris nodded grimly. Keep refining the targeting parameters. We need to find a way to focus the effect more precisely. He didn't add what they all knew, that using the Omega device was a desperate last resort that might save Earth, but devastate much of the solar system. Near Saturn, the battle finally began. The Velsirian fleet launched thousands of fighter craft that swarmed toward Earth's defensive line like angry insects. Enemy fighters incoming, Lieutenant Cooper announced. Estimated time to contact: 4 minutes. Admiral Blackwood activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, deploy countermeasures and prepare to engage. Remember your training. Earth's ships released swarms of autonomous defense drones that moved to intercept the incoming fighters. The space between Saturn's rings and the approaching Velsirian fleet lit up with weapons fire. During the chaotic first hour of battle, Earth's forces held their own through superior tactics and the advantage of fighting near the treacherous debris of Saturn's rings. But as the larger Velsirian warships moved into range, the tide began to turn. "Sir," Lieutenant Cooper called out, excitement cutting through his professional demeanor, "I'm detecting a pattern in their shield modulation. There's a 3-second vulnerability when they fire their main weapons." Admiral Blackwood moved to Cooper's station. "Show me." Cooper displayed the sensor readings, pointing out the momentary weakness in the Velsirian defensive systems. "If we time our attacks precisely, we might be able to bypass their shields entirely." The Admiral didn't hesitate. "Transmit this data to all ships immediately. Coordinate timing with tactical command." With this new insight, Earth's fleet adjusted their attack pattern. When the next wave of Velsirian dreadnoughts moved into firing position, Earth's ships struck at precisely the right moment. 5 massive Velsirian warships erupted in spectacular explosions. For a brief moment, hope surged through the human fleet. But the Velsirians adapted quickly, changing their shield modulation patterns. And still they came, their numbers seemingly endless. "Deploy the first tremor device," Admiral Blackwood ordered after another hour of heavy fighting. Earth had lost 28 ships, while the Velsirians had sacrificed hundreds, but could afford to lose thousands more. The small probe containing the tremor device shot forward, accelerating toward a concentration of Velsirian cruisers. When it detonated, the familiar ripple in spacitum spread outward, tearing apart nearly 300 enemy vessels. The Velsirian advance halted momentarily. Then, with cold determination, they changed formation and continued forward. "They're splitting into 3 battle groups," Cooper reported. "One continues toward us. The other 2 are bypassing Saturn entirely." Admiral Blackwood's face hardened as he realized the Velsirian strategy. "They're heading for Mars and Earth. Signal headquarters. The enemy has broken through." The emergency bunker beneath New Geneva hummed with tense activity. Screens displayed the grim progress of the Velsirian fleet as it pushed relentlessly toward the inner planets. Mars Colony had already begun emergency evacuations, loading civilians onto whatever ships were available. President Martinez stood before the central strategic display, her face illuminated by the red dots representing enemy vessels now approaching Earth orbit. The second tremor device had been deployed near Jupiter, destroying another cluster of Velsirian ships, but thousands more continued their advance. "How long before they reach Earth?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 12 hours, Madam President, replied Defense Secretary Victor Diaz. "Our remaining ships are regrouping to make a final stand, but..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the situation. Earth's conventional defenses would not hold against the overwhelming Velsirian force. Dr. Harris entered the room, followed by Lily Dawson. Both looked exhausted after days without sleep. "The Omega configuration is ready," Dr. Harris announced, placing a small data cube on the table. "Once activated, it will create a cascading space-time rupture that will spread throughout the solar system and beyond." "And the effects?" President Martinez asked. "Total destruction of all Velsirian forces," Harris replied, "but also severe damage to our outer colonies and installations. The ripples in space-time would be unpredictable. They could last for decades, making travel between stars nearly impossible." Lily Dawson stepped forward. "Madam President, before you make this decision, there's something you should know." She activated her tablet, displaying a transmission received just minutes earlier. "We've received a communication from the coalition of species who offered alliance. They're sending ships to help defend Earth, and they've opened a channel to the Velsirian High Command, requesting a ceasefire for peace talks." "Why would the Velsirians agree to that?" Secretary Diaz asked skeptically. "They're on the verge of victory." "Because word of the Omega device has spread," Lily explained. "Our new allies made sure the Velsirians understand what it could do. They know we have the capability to make this entire region of space uninhabitable, not just for us, but for everyone." President Martinez studied the message carefully. "What are the chances this is a delaying tactic?" "It could be." Admiral Blackwood's voice came through the communication system from the remaining fleet near Mars. "But our long-range sensors confirm Allied ships approaching from 3 different vectors. They appear to be genuine." The room fell silent as the President considered her options: use the Omega device and ensure Earth's immediate survival, but at a terrible cost to the galaxy, or take a chance on diplomacy when they were at their most vulnerable. "Dr. Harris," she finally said, "if we delay deployment of the Omega device by 6 hours, can we still activate it if negotiations fail?" Harris nodded. "Yes, but it would be cutting it extremely close. Once the Velsirians enter Earth orbit, even the Omega device might not save the planet's surface from bombardment." The President turned to face the anxious faces of her advisors. "I did not seek this office to be remembered as the leader who rendered our corner of the galaxy uninhabitable. If there's even a small chance for peace, we must take it." She straightened her jacket and made her decision. "Inform our allies we accept their mediation offer, but keep the Omega device on standby." Her eyes hardened. "And make sure the Velsirians understand exactly what will happen if they reject peace and continue their attack." As orders were relayed and preparations made for the unprecedented peace summit, Lily Dawson found herself standing beside Dr. Harris at a viewport overlooking the nighttime landscape of Europe. "Do you think they'll really negotiate?" she asked quietly. Harris watched distant defense lasers testing their targeting systems against the darkening sky. "They might. For the first time, they're facing something they fear more than they hate us." "Is that what peace comes down to? Mutual fear?" "Sometimes," Harris admitted. "But fear can eventually give way to respect, and respect to understanding." He turned to look at her. "This could be the beginning of something new, if we get the chance." Above them, the stars continued to shine, unaware that their fate hung in the balance of the next few hours. The neutral diplomatic vessel hovered in Earth orbit, its crystalline structure catching the sunlight in rainbow patterns. Inside, representatives from 7 species gathered around a circular table. Humans sat across from Velsirians, the air between them thick with tension. Emperor Zaxthal had not come himself, of course. Instead, his chief diplomat, Vorlak, represented the Empire. The tall Velsirian's upper arms remained folded in the formal posture, while his lower arms occasionally made sharp gestures of emphasis. "The Velsirian Empire does not recognize lesser species as equals," Vorlak stated, his translator conveying the cold arrogance perfectly. "This is our fundamental position." President Martinez looked directly at the alien diplomat. She wore Earth's traditional peace colors, white and blue, but her expression remained resolute. "Then we have nothing to discuss," she replied calmly. "If equality is not possible, then neither is peace." The mediator, a gaseous being from the ancient Medellan collective, pulsed with concerned yellow light. "Perhaps we might find middle ground. The concept of equality has many interpretations." Admiral Blackwood, sitting beside the president, spoke up. "Let me be clear. In approximately 5 hours, our Omega device will be activated unless we reach agreement. There will be no more Velsirian Empire afterward, nor will there be safe space travel in this sector for generations." Vorlak's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Empty threats. We have analyzed your tremor technology. You would destroy yourselves as well." Dr. Harris, who had insisted on attending despite his discomfort with diplomatic situations, cleared his throat. "Actually, that's precisely the point. We would rather destroy ourselves than live as slaves." Tension built as the hours passed. Other species offered compromises, proposed neutral zones, suggested trade agreements. The Velsirians rejected most proposals outright. Humans countered with their own requirements. Deadlock threatened to doom both civilizations. With just 90 minutes remaining before the Omega deadline, Lily Dawson received an urgent message. She whispered in President Martinez's ear. The president's eyes widened slightly. She nodded and addressed the gathering. "We will take a 30-minute recess," she announced. "When we return, I hope all parties will be prepared to make their final decisions." In a private chamber, Earth's delegation gathered around a small holographic projector. It showed a distant star system at the edge of explored space, far from any inhabited worlds. "We've configured the third tremor device as requested," Dr. Harris reported the officer on the transmission, "targeting the red giant as specified." Dr. Harris looked at President Martinez. "With your permission, Madam President, I believe a final demonstration is in order." She nodded gravely. "Proceed." When the delegates reconvened, President Martinez gestured toward a large viewing screen. "Before we continue, I invite all representatives to observe this live feed." The screen showed the massive red star, its bloated surface roiling with solar flares. Suddenly, a small flash appeared near the star's equator. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, incredibly, the entire star began to distort. Space itself seemed to fold and ripple around the enormous celestial body. The star's material stretched and twisted in impossible ways as waves of distortion spread outward at faster than light speeds. The star did not explode, it unraveled, its matter spreading along the space-time ripples in a beautiful and terrifying display that would continue for centuries. Vorlak's upper arms uncrossed, a serious breach of Velsirian diplomatic protocol that revealed his shock. "That was a red giant star 80 light-years from here," President Martinez said into the silence. "The waves you just witnessed will travel for millennia, detectable by any advanced civilization. Consider it our final message to the galaxy." She leaned forward. "Now shall we discuss terms of mutual recognition?" 3 hours later, the first galactic compact was signed. The Velsirian Empire formally recognized humanity as a sovereign species with equal rights. Humanity agreed not to share tremor technology with other civilizations. All signatories committed to principles of non-interference and peaceful resolution of disputes. As the delegations prepared to depart, Vorlak approached Dr. Harris. "Your species surprises us," the Velsirian admitted. "We believe technological advancement followed a predictable path. Yet you developed space-time manipulation before mastering standard faster-than-light travel." Harris smiled slightly. "Desperation breeds innovation." "Indeed," Vorlak replied. "The Emperor wishes me to convey that the Velsirian Empire respects strength. Today, humanity has earned that respect." 50 years later, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with activity as representatives from 123 species gathered for the half-century commemoration of the first compact. The circular chamber, built in neutral space at the junction of 7 major trade routes, represented the greatest diplomatic achievement in known galactic history. Admiral Lily Dawson, now 78 years old with silver hair and the confident bearing of a veteran diplomat, adjusted her formal uniform as she prepared to address the assembly. As Earth's senior ambassador, she carried the ceremonial responsibility of speaking for humanity on this historic day. "Hard to believe it's been 50 years, said a familiar voice behind her. Lily turned to see Dr. Nathan Harris, his face deeply lined, but his eyes still sharp. Despite being well into his 90s, he had insisted on attending this ceremony. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," Lily replied. "Other times, like several lifetimes ago." Together, they watched as a Velsirian delegation entered the chamber. Unlike the tense diplomatic encounters of the past, these representatives moved with relaxed postures, their upper and lower arms in casual positions that would have been unthinkable during the war. Ambassador Dawson, the Lid Velsirian, greeted her, all three eyes blinking in friendly recognition. Grand Science Minister Harris, the Emperor sends his personal regards. "Thank you, Ambassador Krell," Lily responded. "Please convey our respect to Emperor Zaxful II." The original emperor had died 15 years earlier, succeeded by his more progressive offspring who had embraced the new galactic order. As the formal proceedings began, Lily took her place at the speaker's platform. The vast chamber fell silent. 50 years ago, she began, our world stood at the brink of mutual destruction. Today, we stand as partners in the greatest period of advancement the galaxy has ever known. She gestured toward the massive viewport where stars shone brilliantly. The Tremor Crisis, as history now calls it, taught us all a painful but necessary lesson. No single species, no matter how powerful, can claim dominion over the stars. The galaxy belongs to all who navigate its vast reaches. As Lily continued her speech, Dr. Harris gazed at the holographic display, showing the current state of galactic affairs. The peaceful cooperation following the first compact had led to remarkable achievements. Joint research projects had yielded breakthroughs in medicine, energy production, and space travel. The modified tremor technology, carefully regulated, now powered a network of stable wormholes that allowed safe passage between distant star systems. Earth had changed too. Once isolated and vulnerable, it now stood as a founding member of the Galactic Assembly. Human colonies thrived on 17 worlds, and Earth vessels explored regions once thought unreachable. Our greatest achievement, Lily concluded her address, is not the technology we've developed or the worlds we've settled. It's the understanding that diversity brings strength, and cooperation achieves more than conquest ever could. Applause rippled through the assembly as she stepped away from the platform. Representatives from dozens of species, some humanoid, others utterly alien, approached to offer congratulations. Later, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Lily and Dr. Harris found themselves alone in the observation lounge, watching ships of various designs moving gracefully through the nearby space lanes. "Do you ever think about it?" Harris asked quietly. "How close we came to using the Omega device?" Lily nodded. "Every day. The fact that we were prepared to use it changed everything. The ultimate paradox," Harris mused, "creating a weapon so terrible that it guaranteed it would never be used." "Not never," Lily corrected him. "Just not yet. That's why the Secure Council still maintains the facility on Pluto, isn't it?" Harris smiled slightly. "An insurance policy. The galaxy is vast, and we've only explored a tiny fraction of it." As they watched, a massive Velsirian battlecruiser glided past the viewing window, escorted by two human vessels. Once mortal enemies, now allies patrolling the borders of known space together. "Whatever comes from the darkness between stars," Lily said, "I believe we'll face it together." Harris nodded, his aged hand resting on the railing. "The galaxy still quakes occasionally from those original ripples, you know. Sensors detect them in the far reaches, a reminder to anyone who might be watching." "A reminder," Lily agreed, "that peaceful coexistence isn't just an ideal, it's the only path to survival." Beyond the window, The stars continued their eternal watch over a galaxy transformed by humanity's last warning, and its first true greeting to the cosmos.